Hi, everyone, and welcome to the February episode of the Nightmares to Miracles podcast. My name is Brittany New, and I'm here with Dr. Dave Asomaning, and today we're going to be talking about miracle mindsets, as we always do on this show. So we have another lesson for you guys from A Course in Miracles that we're going to dive into. It has a beautiful visual metaphor that Dave was just explaining to me before we got on this call together. And this is all part of our series for this year on the topic of light. So today we're going to be talking about light as it pertains to miracle mindset, and that is Dave's area of expertise. So Dave, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Thank you very much, Brittany. Good to be with you again, moving ahead with our work on this podcast, which I love. It's just amazing. We're in our 5th year. I'm always happy to keep track of how long we've been together. Really amazing, right? So let's see. I am an executive coach with leaders and wealthy people, basically, to put it simply. I've migrated over time from the leadership focus, which wasn't quite as defined as it is now, about working with the wealthy. And over the last few years, I've moved through a series of synchronicities and breakthroughs. I've moved more into working with wealthy people, which I love very much. And that could seem, in the current climate in the world, it could seem a bit counterintuitive to some of our audience members, but the wealthy have unique and special sort of needs that I find it fascinating to learn about and to support them with, while in the process learning about wealth building for myself and my business as well. So really, really enjoying that deepening there very much. So yes, we are going to be looking at lesson 69 today, but a little bit of a build up to that before we get there. We call these our preliminaries. So let me define what a miracle is to me, and in this work and in my coaching, all around executive coaching with the focus on miracle mindset. So a miracle is a solution to a problem that seems impossible to solve. Miracle is a solution to a problem that seems impossible to solve, and such a solution is God-sourced. You can say it's from the universe or from higher power. I mean, there are many different ways to describe this source. But this definition is important to me because frequently I find that people start to try to describe miracles as things that are mysterious happenings that are amazing, right? And I guess that's not a bad definition, and that's close to the standard definition that you'll see in a lot of theological works. But it doesn't really get at the heart of why I think it's so exciting to incorporate the idea of a miracle mindset and miracle work into executive coaching, right? It really has to do with helping people overcome sharp, painful, bitter crises that they experience in their lives, right? So, it could be a medical problem, catastrophe even, sudden death of a loved one, one's own impending death. It could be financial chaos, even though somebody might have $40 million of wealth to rely on, $100 million of wealth, $250 million of wealth to rely on, anything along the spectrum. But there can be painful, anxiety-producing crises. And people say, I think people usually say, oh yeah, cry me a river, like, if you've got that much wealth, there's no problem that you can't surmount. Which on a financial level is true, but it doesn't mean the angst isn't there, right? So that's what I do. I live here in Florida, about an hour from the West Palm Beach area. So, Brittany, you covered the themes that we've worked on. Fantastic with that. I also carry lesson 47 with me through the year. This is my 3rd year doing this. Lesson 47, God is the strength in which I trust. I love that theme from that lesson because it simmers me down whenever I'm getting a little or a lot anxious or turned around or unstable or fearful. It just gets me grounded right away to rehearse that lesson and all the powerful promises that are in it, which is that inside of us is a source. If we'll only connect with it, there's a source inside of us that can help us out of any problem or any conundrum. And it says, without effort and ensure confidence. In other words, we can resolve our problems without effort and ensure confidence. And I have to kick myself and say, is it really saying that? Is it really saying that? Is that true? Is that reliable? So, I love going through that lesson and holding to it, clinging to it, using it for myself and my clients through the year. So I think that's it for most of the preliminaries having to do with miracles. There's a whole set of other preliminaries I want to get to about our work together, Brittany, and I'll just do that real quickly and then I'll hand the mic over to you. So let's see, you and I met over 5 years ago when I needed help with my worksheets. I would send these Word document worksheets to my clients um, to kind of give some additional context and support for the work we were going to be doing. And at some point, I was like, I think I can do better if I have somebody who's talented help me. So I found you, and you were just amazing to work with right off the bat. Did a great job with my worksheets, helped me brand everything, and it just all looks so professional. I couldn't wait for the least little reason to send clients my worksheets. I was like, I'm so proud of those things, and then after that. I checked in with you about whether you could help me with some of my video modules. I had recorded audio for my online course. But these video modules, again, they were kind of shabby, and you just put them uh, into shape. You did all kinds of wonderful things with intros and outros, and it just everything took a quantum leap. I then repurposed the online course into the book Nightmares to Miracles, and published a few years ago now, self-published, and but that was an important step for me, seeing the course take shape because of the valuable contributions you made to it, Brittany, the course that is. And then I was able to quantum leap the course into the book. And again, I say it wasn't a walk in the park to do that. It took quite a bit of reworking and editing and collaboration with all kinds of people. But book is has been out for a while, and I love it. I love using that in conjunction with my coaching. And then I was thinking about it, getting ready for a podcast. I said to myself, after all of that, I said, I think it's time for a podcast. It's time, but I don't really want to be on a podcast by myself. I think that would be kind of boring to me and lame even a little bit. So how can I have somebody do this with me? And as I was praying about it, meditating about it, my mind drifted back to you, Brittany, and I checked in with you, and you were like, "Yeah, I'm game. Let's do it." And so here we are. This is our 5th year in now, and I'm always so happy to say that we've actually never met in person. It's a point of pride to me to say that because the use of technology has been a boon to us. We've really been able to capitalize on the technology to have this amazing show. And now we have people saying things, people who are really faithful participants in this podcast journey and who watch our shows, and we'll hear things periodically like, oh yeah, I binge watched your whole year. Last year or the year before I was on a road trip and I just binge watched everything or listened to it and that's, to me, that's an amazing accomplishment for us, Brittany, for us to be here where people are using that term binge watch. I feel like Netflix Junior or something. So in a good way. So um, the final thing I'll say, and then I'll hand the mic over to you, is still about our collaboration together. So one of the blessings in your work, Brittany, is that you'll take this raw video footage from what we're doing today on Zoom, and then you'll turn it into a written blog article so that people who really want to just skim something to read very quickly can do that. We also have an audio podcast for people who, as I mentioned, might be on a road trip and they want to listen, binge watching in air quotes that way, or people who actually want to watch the video. They want to see how we interact. They want to see who we are. So you repurpose this raw footage into the three things, written, audio, and then video. And then you post everything in the appropriate places And we keep an eye on everything. We're troubleshooting different things, and we're keeping it all going. So just couldn't ask for a better ally. In addition to what you do with me substantively on the show itself, asking questions, thinking about how it, you as a leader and as an entrepreneur would be applying miracle mindset. It's just an amazing experience all around. So over to you, Brittany. Anything you want to say about your work and where people can find you, things like that?
Thank you, Dave, for such kind words. As always, we do this on every show. I actually just was speaking with a new prospective client recently, and I wanted to send her a testimonial. So I just grabbed the little. Actually, you can send a timestamp of a YouTube video. So I sent her your video, starting at the testimonial part. Maybe she'll watch the whole video, and she'll become a super fan and start binging the show. But yeah, it was to offer a similar service, so it was relevant. But thank you for the kind words, and I have a website if anyone's curious about what I do. It's brittanynew.com, and I have a YouTube channel with my name, Brittany New. And I was just telling Dave before the show, I have now transitioned into a new sub niche of what I do. I always am talking about helping people use media to work smarter. So that's my mission. But what I'm doing now apparently is a lot of AI videos. And so I had a video recently do very well where I was able to upload one of my favorite photos of myself and turn it into a video of me speaking, saying whatever I wanted to say. So that was caught a lot of attention, and people were like, how can I get that? And I stuck a referral link down below, and like 800 people signed up for this software almost overnight. So that's really fun. If anyone wants to check that out, it's on my channel. But yeah, I do a lot of things. It's always media. I've been like using the computer since I was 7 probably. So I think that's kind of just my thing. And it's such a pleasure to be able to combine my media skills with topics that I'm interested and passionate about, like this one. So this is a real honor to work with you and do this every month, and it always reels me back in and brings me back into what's really important, which is just being the lighthouse brand. We talk about the lighthouse brand on this show, and so I need to always remember, no matter what happens, whatever I do, we are here, whatever industry we work in, we are here to be lights in the world. So I appreciate the opportunity to spread that and exemplify that if I can. But yeah, thanks for that, and yeah, can't wait to hear about today's lesson.
Excellent, Brittany. Thank you, and congratulations on the new horizons you're pursuing in your YouTube work. I look forward to going there and checking it out. Absolutely, yeah, sounds fascinating. Thank you. So, well, great. So, yeah, we're going to go to the lesson now, and lesson 69. My grievances hide the light of the world in me. My grievances hide the light of the world in me. Now, so the format that has emerged and gelled into place for now over time is that we do the lesson. I say a few points about the lesson itself or the reading. Sometimes it's a section of text, not just a lesson. And then there are exercises from if it's a lesson, there are usually some exercises which I'll highlight. And then we are discussing this together, teasing out any additional thoughts and application elements together. And then the fourth section is an application, right? It's like, okay, so how does this all apply to leaders, or more broadly than that, to anyone who wants to apply a miracle mindset to their personal or professional life? And then the final step is the call to action before we finish. So it's kind of a nice bit of a formula that guides the calls. Again, we don't follow it slavishly, but it's there for us. So with the lesson here, I'll just read a little bit from the start of the lesson. And then I really want to get into this metaphor that you alluded to, Brittany, and use that as the foundation for talking about the exercise, which this lesson itself is getting at. So it says, no one can look upon what your grievances conceal. Because your grievances are hiding the light of the world in you, everyone stands in darkness, and you besides them. But as the veil of your grievances is lifted, you are released with them. Share your salvation now with them who stood beside you when you were in hell. They are your brothers in the light of the world that saves you both. So it goes on a little bit with that, and then it says in paragraph 4, I'm skipping from paragraph 1 to paragraph 4, it says, very quietly now, we're getting into the exercise section, Very quietly now, with your eyes closed, try to let go of all the content that generally occupies your consciousness. Think of your mind, this is the metaphor now. Think of your mind as a vast circle surrounded by a layer of heavy, dark clouds. You can see only the clouds because you seem to be standing outside the circle and quite apart from it. From where you stand, you can see no reason to believe there is a brilliant light hidden by the clouds. Excuse me. The clouds seem to be the only reality. They seem to be all there is to see. Therefore, you do not attempt to go through them and past them, which is the only way in which you would be really convinced of their lack of substance. We will make this attempt today. So, just a little bit more on this metaphor in the clouds. So it says, uh, determined to go past the clouds. Reach out and touch them in your mind. Brush them aside with your hand. Feel them resting on your cheeks and forehead and eyelids as you go through them. Go on. Clouds cannot stop you. If you are doing the exercises properly, you will begin to feel a sense of being lifted up and carried forward, ahead. Your little effort and small determination call on the power of the universe to help you, and God Himself will raise you from darkness into light. Okay, so that's about as good as much as I want to do on that for now. So again, just to recap, we've got this ring of clouds. Inside is this part of each of us that is this bright light, but we're standing outside the ring. And so all we think of is that there's only clouds and there's no bright center, right? And this is the light that's so important to uncover and let shine into the world. You mentioned Lighthouse brand earlier, which is a huge part of what we rely on and talk about with miracle mindset over and over again. So here's a very sort of simple metaphor, this ring of clouds, and then we're being encouraged to just press through in our mind's eye from the outside of the circle through the clouds to where the light is, right? And this is a metaphor for giving up our grievances. It's a metaphor for giving up our grievances. So I think it's just a wonderful image. I've loved this for, as I was mentioning in our prep, I've loved this for decades. I haven't come by it for a while now, so I'm really happy to be back to it and sharing it with you, our audience. Any initial reactions to this, and then we'll do a little bit more on this this whole idea.
Yeah, I love this visual, especially now because that last year I moved from sunny Spain to cloudy Netherlands, and I've had this kind of mantra going where I look up on the cloudy days, which is almost every day. Today there's actually sun, but every day I tell myself it's still a sunny day. I just can't see it because the clouds are there, but the sun is always shining. It's just up, it's just above my vision, but it's still a sunny day today. So I've been telling myself that, and that's now I can relate that thought to this lesson. So now I have this additional context for that. I love this.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. The geography of sunlight, right, and where it shines and where it doesn't shine, and all of that. Yeah, that's beautiful. Um, yeah. So the other thing I wanted to patch in here is just a quick reference to our lesson from last month, which was lesson 62, which said, forgiveness is my function as the light of the world. Forgiveness is my function as the light of the world, right? And as the course, A Course in Miracles has a tendency to do, it stacks up the concepts and the teachings and the principles step by step by step in a very careful, nuanced way, right? So it was declaring before that in lesson 61 that we are the light of the world. Every human being is the light of the world. Then it went in 62 to forgiveness is our function. We want to be forgiving. And now it's talking about how grievances hide the light of the world in us. And it's giving us a specific additional recipe for how to undo this cloud of grievances. So from here, we go to a little bit of the application then, right? So what I do in my a lot of what I do in my executive coaching work is support my clients to develop these inventories from when they were very young. all the way through to where they are now. So, for instance, I will say to a client early on, maybe the first or second session even, please start to keep a journal in which, by decades, up until you were 10 years old, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, and wherever you are now, just keep a record of all the traumatic, painful, toxic things that you experienced that you can remember, right? So I'll put that in there. And the reason being that all of these add up. Now I'm sort of just connecting things a bit crazily, but all of these things add to the ring of clouds that are blocking the light. It's not just whatever's going on today, it's the memory banks that are full of things. It's like a closet that's had stuff put into it for years, and people are like, I don't even know what's in there, and I've just been stuffing stuff back there. And now people, again, not everybody's like this, and some have done therapy and a lot of therapy, and people are very aware of their stuff. So I don't mean to be uh, overgeneralizing, but again, this isn't, and I always say this to the clients, but just to illustrate, it's not really about me, but I'll say that when I was about 6 or so, a friend of mine and we discovered a castor bean plant, and the beans looked so delicious looking. So we decided to eat the beans, and so we just gobbled these things down. Needless to say, it was not good for our tummies. Castor oil is a purgative. It helps you get rid of stuff in your tummy. So we had a hard time as kids, and we had our stomachs pumped, right? So that's one of the early, in my inventory up until 10 years old, that's one of the things that I remember. I've got about 600 of these data points, right? As a therapist, as a coach, as I've been doing that. And every time you peel a layer, you see more stuff that was painful and toxic and frightening and just unpleasant, and from minor, mild things to very extreme, toxic things. So I always give these illustrations to clients as a way of helping them say, oh, yeah, yeah, okay. And sometimes clients will say to me, I don't really, from when I was 10 to 20, there's nothing. And I'll say, okay, don't worry. I mean, don't sweat it. Just do whatever you can before then and after then. And then all of a sudden, the floodgates just open, and people have a lot to say in sharing stuff like this. So, and I also caution, you don't want to force yourself to do it. And it isn't quite typical therapy. In typical therapy, you're talking to the therapist and surfacing things. Here, I'm asking you on your own to just do the inventory, right? So these are all some of the clouds that circle the bright light inside. And we have all kinds of other tools, A Course in Miracles being one of them, and Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian cleaning technique, being another one. Let me pause here, see if you have anything you wanted to add on the personal side of applying what this lesson is saying at a deeper level of doing these inventories of personal, toxic, traumatic, painful experiences.
Yeah, I have a question. So, if someone had a grievance when they were younger, and let's say they felt like they had not held on to that grudge or anything, they just had a memory of an experience, would you still advise them to go back and apply forgiveness because maybe there's something subconsciously there?
I do. I do, as a matter of fact. Yeah, because I don't want to make a problem where there isn't a problem, right? But the very often I think that we can let things go, which is really more the traditional approach to forgiveness. Let's say, as an example, I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but as an example, somebody was sexually abused as a 6-year-old in a very graphic and almost a violent way by a trusted family member, and they kept that secret. But through a lot of work and therapy, they've come to terms with it, and they've forgiven and all of that. Um, I'm not saying that work is invalid and it isn't powerful, but if I'm working with them, I like to do a reset and say, okay, um, just add it to the inventory, and let's do some Ho'oponopono cleaning, and let's run it through A Course in Miracles. Because in A Course in Miracles, now this could be a bit touchy for people, so we might need more time on other calls to articulate this. But one of the powerful things about A Course in Miracles is that it says that we make our own movies. So even coming into this world, born into a certain family, a place, a time, this is all chosen by us at the soul level. So everybody's responsible for everything that happens to them. Now, the controversial part is to even hint at or suggest that somebody who's being abused sexually is uh, uh, responsible for that, right? Now, I'm not saying they're to blame for it, right? There's a difference between blaming a young child and attacking them and adding insult to injury. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying on a karmic, metaphysical level, we come into this world to learn different lessons, and some of them are painful, and they're scripted already. Just like a movie with a producer in Hollywood, you might have abusive types of things that are happening, but everybody volunteered to play a part in that movie to illustrate this work of art to the world, right? So I hope that lands okay. You can help me buffer this, and you'll help me with this. But the point I'm making is that that's a different type of forgiveness. Is to say I'm responsible for the experience I had, and I'm willing to let the part of me that was invested in it, I'm willing to let that part let it go. That's not letting somebody off the hook. It's me saying, I have to let myself off the hook for this thing that I manifested. All right, let me be quiet. See if I hope I haven't got myself in any kind of real hot water. But over to you.
It's a really tricky topic, and I think you said it so beautifully. I doubt I could say it any better, highly doubt. But I like to think there's nothing controversial about suggesting that there is a light at the end of every tunnel, right? There has to be something. Helen Keller, who would want to be born in that life? But look at all the great she's done, for example. Yeah, there's a light at the end of every tunnel. One of my favorite books called Life's Operating Manual by Tom Shadyac, he says, the light at the end of the Holocaust was people saying never again, just people raising up together to say never again to something so awful. So, yeah, it's unfortunate to think that there's so much trauma that happens to people and innocent people every single day, and that, there's some level of responsibility or choice in that. But yeah, we believe that the higher power is love. And if that's true, then we were born to experience that love, and life is just unfair. We have free will. Life is hard. And there's really no getting around that. Everyone experiences it to some degree. Yeah.
Great. Thank you for that. Thank you for the support, the reinforcement, compassionate attention to what I'm saying. I love it. Excuse me. The reason I use this is because I learned it from A Course in Miracles. Right? That's where I learned it. And I learned it in one of my darkest periods when I had congestive heart failure, and I was told that I could die. I mean, it was just, you need open heart surgery. You could die. And I was like, wow, okay, this is really, I mean, I've been teaching about miracles for 20 years, and I have no idea about that point in 2014. And I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to deal with this. What's the miracle here? And I studied and studied. I had books in my hospital room. I was there for 3 weeks. And one of the things I learned by going deeper into the course is that on some level, subconsciously, I wanted to be martyred through this congestive heart failure and open heart surgery. It was like a choice that would give me a really good dramatic story. But it was a very subconscious thing. And the message I kept getting was, if you chose this on some metaphysical level, you chose this. If you, all you have to do is say, I don't need it anymore, and I'm willing to let it go. Those two things, I don't need this, and I'm willing to let it go. And I'll step in, the power of the higher power. So I'll step in and change it for you. And the moment I did that, everything changed. Immediately, everything changed for me. So I'm such a big fan of this idea. It's not to beat people up. It's not to point the finger. It's just to say, if you pick all your traumas that you can remember, and for each one you say, I chose this on some level that I'm not fully aware of, and I'm willing to let it go, all the accumulated negative effects subside almost immediately. So anyway, I'm glad we got all of that out. So that's what this lesson, I think, is helping us with, right? Is that this ring of things. It's saying it's so easy to get to the light. If you'll just brush the clouds aside, you might feel them on you. They have no resistance. It's the easiest thing in the world to brush them aside and get to the light. I always like easy, you know. Call me what you will. I like easy for myself and my clients. So, all right. So that's on the personal side, right? The personal application. We're just going to do a little bit more application before we finish for today on the collective political cultural side, right? So one of the themes for today, and by the way, as a disclaimer, we don't bring this up to stir up controversy. It's not about arguing and debating. The real reason we bring it up is to say we're each participating in this shared, it could be a bad dream, it could be a nightmare, it could be a discomfort, it could be really unpleasant, whatever it is, we're sharing in it. How do we bring this to that light inside the circle, right? And get this collective thing through the circle rather than ignoring it and so on. So of late, we've been doing more of this, and I think it's really an exciting turn for us. So the thing that I thought of, uh, and I don't set the agenda exclusively, Brittany, as you know, anything else might come to your mind that you want to share. But I was thinking of the Super Bowl and the halftime show. And that sparked a lot of reactions all over social media. Some people absolutely love what Kendrick Lamar did. They think it's just revolutionary. It's amazing. It's a message about these times we live in, about all kinds of things, white supremacy, his beef with Drake, if you want to go there. I mean, all kinds of things. And then other people just hate it. They're like, not what the Super Bowl is for, not what the halftime show is for, didn't really like it at all, et cetera, et cetera. And so my point is that just bringing the whole controversy to the light within the ring. But, uh, just getting a little bit of conversation going about all the other grievances that are embedded in one side or the other of that, right? You could also say, for instance, the Trump administration says they're going to go and take over Gaza and build real estate there and going to kick 2 million people out and send them somewhere. And again, I'm not trying to stir up controversy about the pros and the cons. I'm just saying that if it's a painful part of the movie in some way, on one side or the other of the issue, we're bringing it to that light within the ring of clouds. Any thoughts, any reactions on either of those two things or something else that you want to bring into the conversation?
Yeah, I think a lot of this, less so with the Palestine conversation, but with the when it comes to the halftime show, I think anyone who doesn't find that to be their style can simply not watch it, do something else. You don't have to give your focus to it. So outrage over a halftime show, it just really shows how privileged we are in this country and how much time we have on our hands, frankly. Um, I don't have a strong opinion. They did some controversial things. This isn't as big of an event, but the Victoria's Secret fashion show was brought back and they introduced fat models, for example. So like outrage over a fashion show, it's like get a life. That's my opinion on everything when it comes to pop culture. Not to say I didn't like one or the other. I didn't watch at either of these events, for the record, though. But what I will say when it comes to this topic and that show, as you mentioned in just your example, just factually speaking, we know that there was shade thrown at multiple characters. And throwing shade as a form of entertainment is actually the opposite of what we're standing for here. So when it comes to being a light, that's literally the opposite of throwing light, is throwing shade. So I wouldn't support a shade throwing contest. They might say in opposition, I don't know about Drake, but let's say with the Trump conversation, they might say that, well, Trump is the first one, and then it's a retaliation shade against evil and injustice and whatever it may be. But shade at shade just makes the room darker. So I wouldn't stand by that as a principle. There was a video about Serena Williams, or was it Venus? Which one was it? Serena?
I think it was Serena, yeah. She was crip walking.
And allegedly she was the ex of Drake, and that's why she was invited. It's like, I think she's in a new relationship or maybe married.
She's married. She's married to the founder of Reddit. They've been married for a while. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, for a while. So the relationship was so long ago and she was invited on stage. I can understand if you're her. When else are you going to be invited to dance in the halftime show of the Super Bowl? But I hope she wasn't up there, dancing on the grave of Drake, so to speak. That's just, such a
Right. That's a morbid picture, isn't it? Yes. And she got into some trouble. There was some backlash out there about the fact that if she had moved on from Drake and was happily married to her husband, why is she sweating this other situation? There was all of that. I mean, everything. There's always a reaction and a counter reaction, which is really what we're surfacing. And I love how you're looking at some of the subtleties about the hate that just gets the shade that just gets flung around the room, right? And lest anybody listening to this say, "Well, you guys are," and Dave, you're straining at gnats and swallowing camels, which means basically from the scriptures that you're really paying attention to little nitty gritty things, and then you're overlooking these whole huge big things. Okay, so let's say that you got the new uh, presidency, Trump, and all of this, and what's going on with that, and is Trump's cabinet, and all the policies, the executive orders, people losing jobs, the workforce being reduced. I mean, there's a whole ton of stuff. So maybe that's the bigger sort of whale of an issue, that we don't want to just overlook. But again, there are people on both sides who feel very passionately and very strongly about the rightness of their position. And again, I do have definite positions, but I'm not using this as a platform to try and advance them. The position that we're advancing here is that whatever the problems are, we bring them to atonement or that divine light. That's the best we can do, rather than getting all inflamed by the movie itself. Right? So that's like going to the movies and seeing a movie, and in some theaters there's audience participation. People are yelling and screaming and cursing at the characters. I do it sometimes at home on my own. I'm streaming. I'm like, don't do that. That's dumb. That's so dumb. Why are you doing that? I'll just say it out loud. But what we're really talking about here is rewriting the script and getting a better movie of any of these things. That's spiritually in the quantum field and so on. So it's really exciting to be able to add this to our application for ourselves and our leaders in terms of miracle mindset work, and for whomever this is encouraging and makes sense, so that things are not quite always as polarized. Um, and yeah, anything else you want to say? There's one other little thing I was going to mention here, but anything else for you, Brittany, before we move to closing for today?
Yeah, I just going back to my original kind of conclusion about having too much time or giving too much focus to things. Going back to the application that you suggested people do, which is take the inventory. I just suggest that people should choose their grievances because you don't have to add endless things to your grievances list. You don't need to put yourself further and further out of that gray cloud. So I think also having a bit of the blinders on can help with reducing the work that needs to be done in order to get to that light. I mean, I feel for people who are just experiencing grievance after grievance and they haven't even left their bed and they just have their phone in their hand and they've accumulated 12 grievances by 7:05 a.m. Right? That's not a way. So yeah.
It's true. And
Yeah, I love what you just said. It's a bit of a fine point, maybe. I always say, for me, it's a guilty pleasure to keep track of the news because, and I try not to exaggerate this too much, but I'm like, yeah, I have some high-profile clients who are in the news, and it's important for me to know what's going on so that when we talk, I can track with them. Hey, how do you, and it's actually, if I do it well without getting too partisan about it, it's like I can say to my clients, I say, you have a front row seat to something we get, I'm mixing metaphors here, microwaved and warmed as leftovers 10 times over. So what do you really think about what just happened? Because you're in those rooms, as a high level leader. So it's a guilty pleasure for me to be able to say, well, I got to do it for work. I got to keep track of what's being said all over the place. So it's fun anyway. So the last thing, thank you for that. It's really, again, we're finding our way talking about this, and every month we'll add more of this, I think, nuances to this segment that we have, which is what's going on out in the world. and how do we talk about it in such a way that at a spiritual and psychological level, it's freeing when people on a practical level feel so much helplessness about stuff, right? So we're looking for miracles in all of this too. So the thing I wanted to share here is a very sort of maybe minor point to some people, but in paragraph 69.7, the teacher whose words we're reading here says, your little effort and small determination to get past the clouds to the light call on the power of the universe to help you. And God will raise you from darkness into light. So the thing I'm highlighting there is the power of the universe to help you. And God, so a lot of times in New Age circles, people will say, I'm praying to the universe, or I'm believing or trusting in the universe as a substitute for higher power. And there are some sort of brands of Christianity that are really deeply opposed to that, right? They're like, yeah, you can't pray to the universe. The universe is the physical manifestation of what God created. You should pray to God, right? So this is an interesting kind of nuance in the Course where I think that, and I've seen it several times before, but I love it when it pops up like this, because I think what the Course is getting at here, and the teacher in the Course is getting at, is really more that song, the vibrational song of love and light that comes from God, which is the universe. It's not talking about the material creation, and it's not exactly talking about the source of the song, but it's saying that vibration, if you're just a little bit of effort you make to break through, will help you. And so it's kind of a bit of meta. It's a bit in between all of the arguments about stuff. So I love it when I see that, because it gives us a chance to underscore what we're saying about universe in the most powerful and helpful way, you know. So anything over to you, and then you usually do our call to action. You do a great job with that to end us. So over to you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that passage doesn't negate the power of God, because more examples like that. We talk about the power of light, which God created light. We talk about the power of love, which God created love. So all of these things that were creation contain their own power within.
Yes. Excellent point. Excellent point. Thanks for bringing that in. Yes.
Yeah, and then in terms of the call to action, I think this lesson particularly was absolutely full of exercises to apply. Just sitting with your eyes closed and traveling through those clouds to get to that light, making that inventory list of grievances, checking out Ho'oponopono, which Dave has resources that are on that as well. Another thing I wanted to mention is that in that passage you just read, it says, your little effort and small determination call on the power of the universe to help you. And as a Christian, I have it in my Christian prayer practice to pray, not just forgiving others while I'm praying, but I pray for the power to forgive others, because sometimes I feel like it's beyond my ability or beyond my willpower. So praying for the power to forgive someone that you might not be able to forgive, or you might think is impossible, is very important. And sometimes you're praying that prayer and it doesn't feel like anything's changed. You just feel that grievance is still there. But I have faith and believe that over time and over repetition, then that subconsciously can dwindle down, and that there can be light lifted in those moments. So I spoke to a girl once who was one of those sexual abuse victims as a child, and she talked about how much her body healed from these ailments after she was able to forgive that experience. And so I said, how did you, that was my only question, was how did you forgive him? And she said, I prayed for the power. I couldn't have done it on my own. So that's what she said.
You know, quick point here, not to make, drag this out, but a quick point on this. I was thinking about it in my prep time too, is that on one of the socials, I found somebody, I didn't interact with them, but they were adamant. They were adamant about the fact that they had gone through abuse, and they would not tolerate anybody saying to them that they had to learn to forgive. They were like, and it was so clear, they were like, I'm in a phase where it's not about forgiving. It's about screaming and screeching and shouting how bad it was what was done to me. And they were so vigilant about every little attempt of somebody to say, well, you got to let that go, bro. You got to like chill, absolutely not having it. And it was like, I was like, wow, okay. That's also part of all of this, right? It's like, it's part of the movie. It's part of the ring. It's somebody's ring. You can't tell them, you can't hustle people along if they're not there or don't want to do it or disagree. It's so I just thought it might be interesting to throw that into the mix of what we're talking about on the heels of what you just said about, yeah, I don't, that's above my pay grade, whatever that is. I mean, most of the time people will respond to the call to forgiveness and work their way into it. But what about when you got somebody who's like, don't even try. I'll fight with you if you try that with me. Uh, you know.
Yeah, I think that's their choice. That's absolutely their choice to choose and to see how that goes for them. If that was someone I loved and cared about, I would want them to forgive, but it's not my choice. It never would be my choice. And also, it makes me wonder, like you said, is there a time and a place in this life for that moment? Do people who haven't forgiven press charges? That's something important to do.
Yeah.
I think it's good for criminals to be brought to justice, obviously. So if you can do that after having forgiven, that's great. But I feel like me, if I have forgiven someone, I wouldn't want any more to do with it. That's how I would see. And then that could be problematic for that in this world for what might come out of that situation moving forward. So yeah, ultimately, I stand by forgiveness, and the reason that's so important is because we are flawed individuals and we need forgiveness, and we are not going to be able to receive something that we're not able to give, just like love. So
In seemingly hard cases like that, I take comfort in what you were saying, which is, God, I don't know about this, but I put it in your care. I don't, you know, I would love for this person to come to forgiveness, but they're adamant. Don't even go there with me, or we'll be fighting about it. And it's not even a personal thing. It's just out there in the on social media. But I'm like, to the point you made a few minutes ago. I'm like, okay, God, this is in your hands. I know you'll, if I bring it to the light, you'll handle it, you'll guide it, like you said, in your own way too. Yeah, it's not my choice to make for them, but I can route it through higher power, or through the universe, through God. Excellent.
all right. All right. Well, I think that's all for today. I was happy to contribute another call to action, that prayer for the power to forgive, because we're only so powerful. And it's a very difficult thing to do in many situations. This world is not kind all the time to everyone. So it's not rainbows and butterflies, but we can little by little do this work to get into that place of light and make sure that we are, opting out of the drama and the nightmares and opting into the love and the miracles. So that's what we're here for.
Beautifully done. Beautifully. Thank you so much for everything that you brought to the show today. It was a lot of fun, very instructive. We also invite everybody to comment. We've been having some great comments and figuring out ways to feature them actually in the videos and the podcast. You've done a remarkable job with some of that too. So we really treasure your comments and feedback in our audience. So thank you so much, Brittany. Looking forward to seeing you in March.
Yes, I'll see you then. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye.